Welcome to the We Are One podcast. I'm Olivia, your host. Each week, I sit down with survivors from the Independent Fundamental Baptist Church to shine light on the abuse, the hypocrisy, and the truth that has existed behind closed doors. These stories matter. These voices matter. And together, we're breaking the silence. Before we begin, please note all individuals discussed in this podcast are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Trigger warning. This episode may include descriptions of abuse, trauma, and other sensitive topics. Listener discretion is strongly advised. Now, let's get into today's episode. Welcome back, Jennifer.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Just running around with chickens with its head cut off, but it's all good.
Hey, 'tis the season. So, you ready to get started today?
Yes, very excited to, dig deeper into, your story and letting others hear about it. And, just so thankful that you are, willing to talk about it now publicly and bring awareness to it because it's a lot. It's some real shit.
It is real shit. It's a Lifetime movie waiting to happen.
100%. I'm waiting for a Lifetime to pick up on someone.
Hey, Lifetime is going to pick up on a few of these, and equally as we dive in, maybe they'll hear something. I'm here for it. I've always wanted to act. I even have people we could have do it for us, so just let me know. But I do have some lines from a potential upcoming book, hint, hint, that I would love to start out with if you're good.
Absolutely. The floor is yours.
All right, let's do it. Growing up deep in the IFB comes with its own set of laws, expectations, and yes, even its own set of incredulous stories that unless you've been there, unless you've lived it, you would not believe. Equally, growing up in the IFB in the 80s and 90s, I'm aging myself, meant that your church, school, patriarchal system were equally your judge, your jury, and your executioner. The grace and mercy of salvation from eternal hellfire that was preached was only grace and mercy shown because it was God's riches at Christ's expense. And being the wretched souls that we were, we didn't even deserve that. So, mercy and grace from the church, the school, our families was highly frowned on. Young people were to be kept in line, their wills broken before the world could sink their teeth into them and take them away from the church. Young people were to be trained in a way that would have made the military a better life for many of us. It was absolutely impossible to keep the daunting list of rules, and even more impossible to keep the list of unwritten rules. It was drilled into my head until all autonomy was gone. I could not trust my own heart. I could not trust my emotions. I could not trust my instincts. I was told that I must come out from the world and be separate, or as the KJV people like to say, peculiar and set apart. To be normal in any way was to be on the slippery slope to backsliding and could not only cost my own soul, but someone else's soul. Picture this, and later on you can read it in the book.
It's really good. And it's very true. The IFB is very full of the patriarchy and just the laws. And, you're submissive.
Yeah.
You are not allowed to think for yourself. And and if your pastor tells you, we'll just look it up or here's a Bible verse, it's basically their way of saying, I know you're right, but I'm not gonna let you know that you're right.
Absolutely.
Or I don't have the answers, and so what I'm gonna do is hit you with some scripture.
Yeah.
You'll be fine. And it's very far from the truth. Definitely for those who have experienced like mental health, and just things like that in the IFB, which everyone has. Anxiety is a real thing. Depression is a real thing. Medicine is okay. Therapy is okay. It is not the devil, even though in the IFB they teach that because
they do.
That mindset that, well, you can't be depressed, you can't be sad, and if you are, then you don't have Jesus in your heart.
You need to read your Bible more. You need to pray more. You need to focus more.
Yeah. And that's something that, has dwelled on me since a kid, where there was times where I did things and I was like, well, then I just can't be saved. So then I would always have that thought process. If I die today, am I really saved? Because I have these thoughts or I have these opinions, just kind of, it's kind of hard to like imagine, but it's very true for all of us. And
Yeah.
it
I
always
believe it's an internal system that creates the anxiety and depression,
oh, 100%.
especially in IFB members, because you live such an anxious lifestyle and you live in so much guilt and condemnation. And then at such a young age, equally, you have to not only protect your own soul, but you're responsible for the souls around you. And there is no child or adult that can physically, mentally, or emotionally handle that kind of anxiety.
Yeah, no, and that's good. And that kind of ties in with my first question. You know, early, in part one and just, conversation between you and I,
Mhm.
you talked about how other salvation, like that you were taught that other salvation depended on how you acted. And this was something that really caught my eye because you're not the first person to say this on here, but it kind of reminded me of on season one when I did the Bible College Madness.
Yes.
I had a guest on and she even talked about how there was times where if she looked up when it was, put your hand in the air, if whatever, and it just the idea of her opening her eyes and
Yes,
someone didn't get saved, then she was going to help, like that fear.
absolutely.
How did that burden shape your sense of self-worth, like as child, like how can you describe how you felt?
Yeah. I think your first person said it really well. I remember them saying every head bowed, every eye closed, no one looking around. But what was always interesting is it was like it's just between you and God. And of course the person preaching, and then everybody after the service where they all sat and talked about it. And I do remember thinking that, like, well, if I look around, what if somebody sees me and they're too embarrassed to raise their hand? Then when I get to the judgment seat of Christ, he's going to play this big screen, and I am going to be blamed for this person not knowing Jesus. Equally, I was taught I mean, as early as kindergarten, that I was responsible for the person next to me, the person in the restaurant, the person in my neighborhood. If I didn't stand out differently and hand them a gospel tract or go up to them and be all cute and sweet and give them the ABCs of salvation or pray before my meal at a restaurant, if I didn't present those things, I could be the reason that someone doesn't get to heaven. And what was insane, if you think about this, especially in those formative years, is preachers I remember would specifically talk about like, those people are going to be burning and looking up at you and asking you, why didn't you tell me? And I'm sorry, there isn't a horror movie out there that I wouldn't rather watch than to think about that. Because, especially being created by God as an empath, I carry things very deeply, I carry things very heavily. So, when you put something on me, I take that incredibly serious. And I didn't know how, nor should I. I did not know how to balance being a normal kid and equally being this proselytizing little missionary on in my school that was equal to my church, and they already knew Jesus. So how was I going to be a stumbling block? But yet if I didn't tattle on them, I was causing them to backslide. So, I mean, it quite literally formed me from 5 years old up, and it was ingrained in me to walk in fear, to fear, and to equally, well, if I was walking in fear and I was feeling fear, then I must not be having enough faith in Jesus, which was going to lead someone to stumble. That's a lot to carry.
It is a lot. And just even like I remember being like a young kid and like teenage and all that, and just the idea of like doing something other than a church event. Like, am I going to die on the way to a Colts game? Am I going to die going to a high school football game? Am I going to hear about it why I was not there for weeks and weeks and weeks and get embarrassed and all that? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Definitely as a high schooler, and I've been very honest and open about my feelings towards my youth pastor, but
Sure.
that was something that he loved doing. He liked embarrassing kids, and
Mhm.
I think some of it was obviously the IFB and just that's what you're taught in a way,
Yeah,
definitely.
it is.
But also, I think he was also a Marine and tough love in that idea of, grow a pair, go a
Sure.
long way. So I think that also intertwined. And also, I will say he's very intelligent. He was a lawyer before. He works for David Gibbs, though. And so
Mm.
he knew how to manipulate he knew how to manipulate and get intertwined with making you feel dumb while
Yeah, they do.
and so and he did a really good job doing that to everyone when he, you know, was never saved. So, I know firsthand that fear and
Yeah.
that mindset of, oh my gosh, if I do this or if I go there, and I'm going to be, and yes, you're going to be held, but only your actions. We all have free will.
Mhm.
And I honestly believe too that if we were good human beings and just showing kindness and stuff, people would not be atheists or running away from the church. Everyone
Yeah,
is like, oh my gosh, nobody's a Christian anymore. Well, the people in the front pew are the reason why. Like,
that's absolutely right.
judgmental. And like, you know, guys, you can't be talking about women or whatever, but then you're looking at porn. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're a hypocrite. And so I think that's also another thing. And people are like, well, we're not perfect and all that. Yeah, that's true. We're not
But
perfect.
you need to own that.
But you need to own that. And when you don't, and then when it comes to light, then it's just it's like another reason why people are like, here you go. This is another reason
Yeah,
I'm not going. Uh,
yeah.
so, I know you talked about kind of like on the first episode, just talking about like the fire and hell and like that fear of just being a little kid and like that salvation. Uh, what was like the first time I guess you could say that you realized like the fear and guilt that were like being used to control you?
Wow. Um, I gotta tell you, probably the first sense of control was definitely middle school. I was close to maybe 10 or 11 years old, and there were these moments. I remember hearing preachers speaking so vehemently and so maybe like hostile towards teenagers and middle schoolers from the pulpit. And it was, parents, don't trust your middle schoolers, don't trust your teenagers. They're liars, they're rebellious, they were born with hearts of sin. The world is out to get them. Don't you dare let them be in their rooms alone. Don't you let them have their own diaries. Don't you let them, you better be reading their notebooks. You better be checking their drawers. And sadly, I was the good kid in our church group slash school group because I was manipulated to tattle. Um, and those are my first memories. Like for me, I would come home from staying the night with a school friend, aka a church friend, and it would be, well, what did you watch? Did you wear something inappropriate, aka shorts instead of culottes? Did you watch a PG movie? Did you listen to the radio? And I was never one to be able to lie. Like, you can tell a lie on my face very quickly, which really sucks because it would have done me well at Pensacola if I could have told lies. Um, so my mom would ask me questions and I would tell her the truth, but equally, she would then turn around and tell her friends. And so my friends got in trouble, which made me a tattletale, which made me the butt of every nasty joke. I was not well liked, but I wanted my mom to love me. And I wanted to please her because to me, my mom was on a pedestal, and pleasing her was equal to pleasing God. Because if I had a good relationship with her, then I had a good relationship with God and vice versa. The two, unfortunately, were completely coinciding. So if it meant being in my mom's good graces and getting her attention and even a remote sense of pride or affection, I told her. And equally, the guilt would literally eat at me, girl. Like I would listen to a song on the radio and come home and just be like, oh my God, I did this, you know? And so even at those early ages, I watched ministers, men, come in and completely dog teenagers. it was like we were these hated, almost like these hated beings. Like we weren't even allowed to have a youth group. And they would come in and preach, and the next thing I know, the parents are going home and ripping through their kids' private stuff and accusing them of lying. And a lot of us kids were genuinely innocent. All we wanted was to fit in. And we couldn't fit in the world because we weren't allowed and we were terrified. And we didn't fit in with our parents because there was this umbrella and this patriarchy, and it was the men, the women, then the teenagers. And oh my God, teenagers are immediately bad. And so when you are taught that from a young age, you will literally do anything emotionally, mentally to be loved, to be seen. And so that fear of hell, that fear of backsliding, that fear of being the one that the preacher called out by name, or hey, you in the back row with the curly brown hair. They did those things. I watched friends have to stand up and confess. I mean, in second grade, I stole a pack of a gum, okay? A pack of bubble gum. I was a klepto in second grade. Oh no. No, fourth grade. I'm sorry. Turns out the owner of the grocery store also went to our church. I didn't just have to give the gum back and pay him. I had to stand up in front of the church
Oh,
and confess that I had stolen a pack of gum. That will do some damage.
oh,
You need
100%. Yeah.
therapist.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it was, yeah,
And
it just,
make it extreme like that. There's extreme levels where there's people out there that had to stand in front of the church for like you said, a pack of bubble gum or just
yes.
crazy things. And then there's, not extreme where you just talk to the pastor and then they like, or you don't do that, whatever. So kind of shows the difference is also in the IFB how extreme and how like
Yeah.
light they
Yeah.
are.
There was everything is there's no median and there's no middle ground.
Yeah.
You're either right or you're wrong, you're good or you're bad. And unfortunately, especially in the IFB in the 80s and 90s, unless you were living this step by step, rule by rule, written, unwritten, then you were not to be trusted. And I was doing everything I could to survive. My body and my brain as a middle school child would have done anything to be accepted and loved. And equally, I was being bullied at church and school. So, and I was being bullied at home.
Well,
So,
it's something that you said too, just to bounce back, you said also that you being with like your mom on a high pedestal,
yeah,
you thought if you're in a good relationship with her, then you're gonna be good with God. And I
yes.
think that a lot of people think that with
Mhm.
their IFB pastor.
Yes.
View
Oh,
my
absolutely.
IFB pastor as another God. So if my
Yes.
pastor is proud of me, if my pastor shows me that he loves me, that he's praying for me, that he cares for me. He
Mhm.
gives my family a little extra money because he knows that we're down, which I've I know like my former pastor has done that with some families.
Well,
Or
that's nice.
yeah, I
We were
can
too busy fundraising for Christian school sports.
which we were fundraising for like summer camps, but
Oh,
you
yeah, that
know,
too.
just simple things like that, then they think, oh wow, pastor loves me, and then they think, well, God will love me too, and it's like, no,
Yes.
there's no equal. If you think that your pastor, if you view your pastor as a God, you are in the wrong church.
Yes.
100%. He should never have that, not macho man, I'm higher. No, you're not a God.
He was looked at like a little god. Like we could only buy like it had
I
to be
think
pastor.
he needs to be held on a different pedestal in the way
Yes.
of he needs to own up with his congregation what he does because that is biblical. But he also shouldn't be higher than a god because he is not. And that is something that my former church loves doing. I mean, for the 40th anniversary of the video, sickening how much gifts the guy got. Um,
I know it's literally like I
and
don't
well,
work.
it's just like Jack Hyles getting 70,000, like $70,000, like I'm like, I don't.
That name
And they're
just
like raising him up like he's like in Africa on an elephant. Like I don't understand. Like I don't get it. Like that idolizing and stuff like that is so dangerous. But that's what they do in the IFB.
yeah,
And then
it
kind of
is. It's
also
amazing.
kind of like you said also briefly, about like this righteousness of them. They
Yeah.
have to be the king. They have to be the god and all that. And there is times where it has affected me in my life because I'm like, I didn't like my pastor. I did not like talking to him.
Mm-mm.
Nope, no, no,
Ours
no.
was almost untouchable. I don't know about yours, but ours was very like
You
the
got to
kids
go to
wanted
him.
to bother him, but he was nice to the kids. But equally, it was kind of an understood rule that we didn't just go up to him. But here's the crazy thing. Peter Ruckman, KKK, racist, misogynist, horrible human being. He somehow, when would come to our church multiple times a year, would have candy for the kids and would want the kids to come up and hug him and say hi and all of these different things. And I'm just like, looking back now, I'm like, of course you had to have this persona with the kids in order to hide the fact that the words you were speaking from the pulpit were so incredibly racist and hateful and misogynistic and
Oh, it's awful. I mean, his own Bible, like, oh,
oh
it's awful. And that is true. I mean, I know quite a few like guest pastors. Now I will say this, my former pastor, he was because he's no longer a pastor. He was the type where he would stand by the auditorium doors and you had to go up to him to speak to him or anything or shake his hand.
didn't come to you.
If you're lucky if you get handshaken. He never came up to you. He would go straight to the office. His grandkids would be in there. He would give them some peanut butter, whatever like that. It'd be very rare if I ever saw another kid in there, which perfectly is fine with me. But and then he would skedaddle. Like, he wasn't he never was like, "Hi, welcome, thank you for coming." None of that. It was you come up to him like, "I'm this macho man. I'm gonna stand here and let them come to me." And it's like, you're missing the whole point, dude. I'm telling you, I could go on and on, but this is
Mhm.
about you, not me. So, let's kind of talk about because I know that there's going to be more to come about this.
What?
So, I want to talk a little bit about your relationship with your mother
Okay.
because we kind of talked about how you were really codependent on her,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
wanted to make her proud and
Yeah.
want her just to love you for
Mhm.
who you are. And I know there's so many people, I know like three people are coming to my head right now that totally can understand and relate to you because all they ever wanted to do was hear, I'm so proud of you. And they've never gotten that. It was, well, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, and this, that, and that. So I kind of want you to, like, looking back, what are some moments, that were some turning points in this dynamic where it shifted, where you were like, all I want you to do is love me.
Mm.
All I want you to do. And then you had to realize that you can no longer be codependent on her.
Yeah. That's a heavy one, but equally, I have been surprised over the last 2 years at how many sons and daughters have spent time hearing my story and are like, oh, me too, or oh, I thought I was weird for thinking that. Um, the dynamic in my home was codependent from the jump. My mom and her husband at the time did not have a healthy relationship. So our family dynamic was not only not healthy, but it was very much puppeteered by the deacons, their besties in the church. The men would be in his ear, the women would be in her ear. Um, and it was a shit show, for lack of better words. And so when they would go at each other, it usually went from screaming match to a month or two of silence, especially around the areas of submission, weight gain, things like that. And so when that would happen, my stepdad would equally kind of be him and the boys, and he would baby them. They didn't have any roles, they didn't have any chores, things like that. and then it would be my mom and I. And so when things weren't well with him, I was closer to her because I was kind of her little person. And obviously that got me a little more attention and what I wanted, but equally, um, it was kind of being a pawn, like, okay, well, if you're going to be nice to the boys, then I'm going to be nice to the girl. And you start to notice that dynamic at an early age, like, okay, something's not right here. But when mom and dad are mad at each other, I get more attention from mom. um Equally, what when I really noticed it, unfortunately, I guess I was probably again middle to maybe early high school. Some of it's really convoluted for me. If I'm honest, a lot of things I blocked out. But one instance in particular, I don't remember what I had done. Probably got a B or told a lie or something. But it was enough that my mom had a conversation with me. And in this conversation was the idea of when you sin against God, you break relationship with God, which means if your relationship with God is broken, because I'm your mom, our relationship is broken. So until you make your relationship with God right, our relationship is off. And I started to look back on that over these past few years and doing therapy and trying to figure out where my abandonment issues came in, where my people pleasing issues came in, and began to realize that as long as I was walking the walk, talking the talk, being the good little Christian girl, even if it was at the loss of any type of school slash church friendships, even if it was to the extent of lying about who I was and who I am, or even to just the extent of my own misery, if I was doing what she had given me the list of rules to do, then we got along great. I was her daughter. She was proud of me. She would say she loved me. I didn't realize until I got older, but in our home, we did not have a lot of positive touch. We didn't have a lot of positive play. We didn't have a lot of atta girls. It was more, yes, I'm proud of you, but also you need to do this, this, and this. Or it was, hey, I'm proud of you, but also you're only okay at this and okay at that. And it began to be this thing where all I wanted was for her to be proud of me. I didn't care about my stepdad because, as I've shared, there was some abuse there, and he was a horrible man. I didn't have a father. Um, I equally didn't care about the people in the church. Although, if I was nice to them, they in turn bragged on me to my mom, which in turn brought more positive affirmation. But at that major point in my life and in my mental development, being told that my relationship with God was kind of on par there, I began to live to that standard. It was like, okay, as long as I am making decisions that my mom is proud of because they fit a certain very strict standard, then she was proud of me and I was her favorite. But the minute I would make a decision that would disappoint her or would embarrass her in the IFB, or equally that she fundamentally did not agree with, then that changed the dynamic of our relationship, in which she withheld that pride, she withheld that affection. So, if I'm really honest, if you think about those formative teen years, that is exactly where my view of God came in. Okay, God was this father waiting to punish me, waiting for me to screw up, waiting for me to come and beg for forgiveness, waiting for me to grovel and to be like, oh, I didn't do this right, which means, yeah, you're still God, but there's punishment coming my way. So that, I don't know, that cut I got or the flu I got or the bad grade I got is punishment because I wasn't pleasing you. And so it developed this severe sense of perfectionism. It developed this crazy sense of if I don't do XYZ at all cost, then you're going to abandon me. You're not going to love me the same. I'm going to be less than. Um, that continued to develop uh, into my marriage relationships. It continued to develop in her relationships. As long as I kept the conversations and the opinions and thoughts to maybe what either she agreed with or to safe spaces, then everything was good. But the minute it became uncomfortable, then that meant there needed to be a change in the relationship. So it became very confusing and it was like walking on eggshells.
Yeah, no, and I totally understand that. And I think, and I know a lot of people can relate to that. Definitely the walking on eggshells and not knowing, if I do this or say this, what will the reaction be? Will I get what I want? Will I not get the reaction I want? Like, there's a lot of things like that. And, there's a lot of, I've always said that the IFB puts a really label of unconditional love versus conditional love. And in the IFB, everything is conditional love.
Everything is conditional.
Um, it's always if you do this, this, and this, but if you do this and this and that, I can no longer associate with you. Even if that meant a parent and a kid, they will disown you because, well, then you're far out. You are so gone, and only Jesus can help you now. Only God can help you now. Read the Bible. They throw the scripture at you, and then they leave you up and dry. And I know firsthand also the whole idea of conditional love in the way of with my father and stuff, there was things that, I was like, oh, looking back, that's conditional love, 100%. And I know you kind of just like briefly talked about, some of the things, but what did, sorry, what did love look like in your home? And how has that definition evolved for you now? Because like for me, now that I'm in a healthy relationship, my boyfriend is my like saving grace. I love him so
Yeah,
much. Uh, he has showed me actually, I mean, so is my mom,
sure. But it comes
but it's
differently.
differently
Yes.
because I didn't have that with my dad. So to have a guy or a man, not a guy, sorry, babe, a man come in and show me true love in the way of not leaving me, even when things are hard, having the hard conversations. I can say what I want, and even if it may hurt his feelings, he's very open to it.
Yeah, there's an adult intelligent
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. It's something that my dad could never have, and neither could most of the men in the IFB. And even women too. They don't know. Again,
They
like you
talk,
said,
they lose their voice.
they lose their voice. They
Mhm.
don't know how to think because you get told what to think. So how has like what did love look like for you, and how has that evolved for you?
It has definitely evolved, um, which I'm so thankful for, because I don't know that my empathetic heart could have survived to almost 50. I really don't. Um, Love growing up, like you said, was incredibly conditional. It was you do right, things are great. You do wrong, things are either a swift and physical punishment or a emotional punishment is what I called it, like where they would withdraw that affection and that love or just kind of ignore you. We were very much taught in the IFB that if your teenager and or your college student decided to rebel in any form or fashion, you shunned them. You turned your back on them. I was told at a very early age that if I were to interracial date, that would be an immediate grounds for shunning. By the way, I now have a black son. Um, I was told that
You rebel.
yes, very much so. Yes, that's a story down the road.
Yes.
Um, I was told to go anywhere other than Pensacola Christian College and to study certain things would cause me to lose my family. So I didn't know at the age of 18 that there was an option to be or do anything. It was my mom saying, you're going to go to Pensacola or we're not going to pay for it and you won't have a home to come home to. And unfortunately, it was my stepdad saying, not only that, I don't want to pay for much of it. So you're going to go work there and you're going to leave immediately after high school. You're going to go from bubble A to bubble B and just be shipped off to work in a 110-degree factory 12 hours a day. Um, and it was, if you don't do this, we're not going to be here. You lose everything. So, even as my therapist has described it, as a 17-year-old child, I had learned to protect myself by doing exactly what I was told. I had no autonomy. I was fear based. I was perfectionism based. So, yes, ma'am. And then it was, well, I want to be a therapist. And it was okay, if you're a therapist, then that means you're being worldly. So, again, you're going to lose your family. What we want you to do is get your MRS degree, essentially. We want you to marry in the ministry, or if you're gonna be single, which was highly frowned on, then you needed to do something that was missionary based, Christian education, nursing, or home economics. Now, I don't know where you live, but where I live in the world I grew up in, home economics does not make you any money. And
Okay.
I had no desire to be a stay-at-home. One of the hardest things for me was learning to be satisfied with that later on in the future when after my wreck and things and I had to be home. But equally, I knew that any actions outside of that little narrow path would cause me to lose family. It went as far as I did go to Pensacola. I did meet a ministerial person, not a good person, but I married that person. And because that person was Southern Baptist youth ministry instead of IFB, and because we danced the chicken dance at my wedding, my mom did not come to my first wedding and did not talk to me for 6.5 years.
Uh,
So I know firsthand what it is like to lose your family. I know firsthand what it is like to be like, what is so inherently wrong with how God created me? What did I do to piss God off that He would create me in such a way that my own mother didn't want me? That my own mother could be involved in a church that justified turning their backs on me. But equally, all these other places and people were justifying it. You have your Pensacola's, your Bob Jones, your Bill Rice's, your Peter Ruckman's, your Jim Fallours. All of these people are teaching her and encouraging her to do these things, on top of the fact that they've told her that, you know what happened to Jen isn't really that big of a deal because it was only a little bit of sexual abuse. It wasn't a lot of it. So, in that case, she needs to go away to school. She needs to get right with God. She needs to forgive and forget. And oh, by the way, let's take this little nugget with you. If you don't do those things, and if you have bitterness in your heart, and if your parents end up separating, that's on you. It's because you didn't behave right. So again, that conditional love was placed on me as a child. I was holding a marriage in my hands. I was holding my own healing. I was holding the secrets of my family. I was holding the secrets of other youth in our church that had been molested, that had been abused. But conditional love meant sharing those secrets. I would lose my family. I would lose the only protection I had. Thank God now, with hundreds of dollars in therapy and equally hours of tears and tons of study and research, I am understanding that that is not love, that is abuse. I am understanding that silence is not love. I am understanding that placing these things on children is not love. I'm not saying they didn't do their best. I'm not saying that they don't have their own trauma stories, but just like you and I, you come to a point where you have to say something is wrong and enough is enough, and love is action. We can use words all day long. The IFB can preach love all day long, but they are the meanest and they are the first to cut you off. And I've seen it firsthand. I've lived it. I've experienced it. I have laid and cried with so many people. I have lost friends to suicide over it. And I will not back down on this. The truth needs to come out. God says that love is love the Lord your God with all your heart. And the second command is to love others as yourself. You've got love, you've got love, you've got love. All three of those things require action. And when you are conditional, that is not love. that is not love.
No, and it's so true. In the IFB, it's conditional love, and if you don't do or you don't listen to what they say, then
Mhm.
they excommunicate you or they disown you until you then turn your life around and get right with God, and then everything is fine. It doesn't matter if you were, it's always that I hate that saying that, well, they weren't in church. It's like they just
Yeah.
like, I'm sorry, what? Like
But yeah,
how can you justify it? But they do, and like you said too, in the IFB, it's a black and white world, and so I always say to those who truly know and truly feel in their heart that something is wrong, but they don't say anything, it's just like something is fundamentally wrong with you because like eventually you hit your breaking point in the IFB. And
silence is complicit.
silence, yeah, it is horrible. And there's so many things that have happened in the IFB that people take their lives, like you said, suicide.
Mhm.
There's people who are living a lie today because they are scared to be their true selves, and we'll get more in that too. Um, like you talked about how you didn't even know that there was a life for you
Mm.
outside of being told what to do. And then when
Yeah.
you went to college and marrying, now you married someone Southern Baptist, which is a big no-no.
Oh, absolutely. Oh man, I had no clue.
Yeah. And also marrying someone, outside of your race is a big no-no, which I don't understand that.
Yep. Oh, they will die on that one
The
too.
fact
I
that
remember.
the fact that racism like exists, like, I just don't get it. Like, what but the thing is, how can you say these things or preach these things, but then sing in a Sunday school that Jesus loves all the little children, red, black, and white, they're precious in his sight, but you can't love them.
You can't love them, but Jesus
You can't
can.
have children. Yeah, you can't do. It's
But
like,
love like Jesus.
yeah, it's like the more that we talk about it and the more that it folds, it just proves the hypocrisy. I've
Yeah.
had quite a few people say in the beginning they were pissed off at me. They did not like me. They could not believe it. And then they had to take a look in the mirror and realize that everything I was saying was the truth, and truth hurts. And it was one of those gut wrenching moments, but they were so thankful that actually it humbled them. And so I always say, if one more episode does that for someone, then so be it. And they get the hell out of the IFB. But I'm glad, like you said too, you're not backing down from it, because neither am I, girl.
Yeah.
And the more people I interview with, and the more people that we talk with, definitely about, certain situations, to bring more awareness of it. I really hope that one day, definitely the future generations to come, change the way, because I am so scared that they're gonna backtrack and go like the 50s and 40s.
And they are currently we are in a time that we need to be afraid of that, let's be honest. Um and the IFB is helping with
Yeah.
that, with the evangelical nationalism and the all of that mess. But I want to say to you, you are that generation that's flipping tables, and you are that generation, Olivia, that's making a difference, and it's
I
why
really want to name the series that, but I know another podcaster
it
did.
does. And she's amazing. I hope to
But
talk to her
it
soon
is
if she's
so,
listening. Uh,
I really
but
want to, just because it's so funny. I
a girl. Well, and that's like what's her name doing Holy Disruptor. I love that. And that is what I want. While I don't know what my reconstruction is going to look like, I know that I want to be a Jesus follower. And I can tell you equally that there are some hard subjects that I can walk with people in. I can empathize with child abuse. I can empathize with physical abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse. I can empathize with rape. I can empathize with mental health. I can empathize with abandonment. But I am not going to be silent anymore. And it may come out awkward at first, and it may come out stumbled over as I find my voice. But when you've spent 49 years silent, it's kind of like a baby learning to walk. They have to make those crawling steps, and then they start walking, and it's awkward at first, but then they take off. And I'm confident. I'm so confident to know that our voices are going to take off and our voices are going to be heard, and we are going to see healing, and we are going to see people love like Jesus, but it is not going to look like what they preached. It is going to be a modge podge of misfits. It is going to be queer people. It is going to be interracial couples. It is going to be single women and single moms and single dads and different people standing up and speaking out and saying, I want better. This Jesus's heart is crushed, and I know that it is. And I will stand on that,
Yeah,
because the God that I want to love, the God that I want to believe in, is the God that had a son like Jesus that lived completely opposite of what we're living now.
yeah, no, and I think that's a really good point, and I'm glad that you said that because there's a lot of things that there's a lot of things that have happened and are still currently happening in the IFB specifically,
Mhm.
um, that make my skin crawl because Jesus would never take a rod. I hate that they use that verse and take it so out of context.
It
They
is
take it
absolutely out of
so out
context.
of context. And also that mindset too, that's in the Old Testament. And according to them, we're not supposed to be following the Old Testament. So you guys love using that, but it's so out of context. And it's another way to justify um
Absolutely. It's cherry picking.
it's cherry picking, but it's also at the end of the day, it's also their way of justifying abuse that you can beat your little child or your like wife or whatever, whoever you whatever. You have Steven Anderson on camera literally talking about how, well, it was just a switch. It was just a cable. It was this. And it's like
Just a whelp.
or like his clip too. God says to beat your wife and beat your children. No, God does not. God says to love your wife like to
Yep.
love
And
your
provoke not your children to wrath.
yeah, so like they cherry pick it, and then or what they do is they take the verse, they manipulate it in the way that they can use in context, and like the whole biblical uh discipline. I mean, I know so many kids who would say that they heard their parents talking about, well, if you use this, then it won't leave a mark. If you use glue sticks, if you use this, and that is just something that it really hurts the mental health of a child.
Mhm.
um it hurts the physical part.
Well,
There's
if you
people.
remember, I don't know if you heard this growing up, but I did. This hurts me than it more than it hurts you. And I'm doing this out of love.
Oh,
And
yeah,
I'm sorry, but love does not hurt.
correct.
Love does not leave marks. Love does not cause a child to cower and to tremble in fear and not want to tell you they spilled a cup of milk for a fear of your reaction.
And I honestly believe too that the more strict parents there are, they're more sneaky kids. So it's like you're beating me, but it's not doing anything besides just making me not love you. Like there's just like it puts a block like between
It
your
creates
relationship.
an environment where you almost have to rebel.
Yeah,
Like
100%,
it's,
because it's
yeah.
like, if not, if I'm doing what I'm supposed to and this is what I'm getting, then I might as well rebel and whatever, like that's what I had. I had that mindset of like, well, I don't like authority, so I'm just gonna do whatever I want and take the consequences. And I'm not saying that's right, but I'm just saying like that's what my thought process was like, well, even if I'm telling the truth, you're still calling me a liar, so I might as well lie. Like,
See, I wish I'd been brave enough to do that. I was, oh, my heart hurts
I
at
now
times.
I will say this. I picked and choose what I tattled on
Mhm.
because I liked I
I get
like
it.
throwing out the hypocrisy. If I'm getting yelled at by my
Mm,
lots, well then you better
okay.
hit first. So it was more of that, not because I wanted someone to get in trouble, but because I'm like, if I'm getting in trouble for it, y'all are getting in trouble for
And
it.
see, mine was I literally didn't want them to get in trouble. I just wanted my mom to
Yeah.
love me. And I
And there's
wanted
a lot
God
of
to be
people out
pleased with
there
me.
that, yeah, there's a lot of people out there, definitely pastors' kids, but, men, missionary kids, definitely the parents who have like that pedestal of like a parent. I never did, but then again, I really had no respect for authority in general, so that was just something
No. And
for me.
I don't know what it was like in your church, but for us, I can tell you that you were encouraged to be that way. You were encouraged to keep your friends accountable by tattling on
Yeah,
them.
Well, it would always say, well, I'm holding you like the way that God would. God would hold.
Yeah, I love the
Oh, yeah, no, I
I'm
totally.
loving you by holding you accountable. And I mean, whether it was at Bill Rice Ranch and even at Pensacola, they thrive on tattling. You move up in the ranks the more you told on
Oh,
people.
yeah, that's just how it is with the troubled teen industry. They have the
Yes.
girls on top of the girls. They have the guys on top of the guys in the way of like, color shirts. You're above
Yes.
this person, but you're not above this. So again, it just goes back to controlling any way that they can, any way, any form, any word, anything. It is legit control and fear. I know you talked about your first marriage and how you know dating someone a different race, is a big no-no in the IFB, but I still, me and you don't understand that. I mean, they
Yeah, I
love
didn't get that the first time. He was just Southern Baptist.
okay, so but in the way of like different like point of views, like
Absolutely.
Southern Baptist and IFB are they're different.
Oh, it was especially back then.
Yeah.
Um, the Southern Baptist in the 80s and 90s was actually a little more, I use this term very loosely, hear me well, liberal than what it has become, the hot mess that it is now, and it's more Christian reformed is what they call it. Um, but between him being Southern Baptist, he came from a wealthy area near where I lived. And I will say this, I will give my mom this credit on this. He was not a good guy, okay? There were red flags. But equally, what they have to understand is they had created me to just want love. And this person knew how to love bomb me and knew how to see my brokenness and use it against me. And for me, it was like, if I get out of the umbrella of my parents and go under the umbrella of this youth pastor, you have to love me because he's a youth pastor, because he's doing all these things. Well, I kind of went from one abusive situation to another. I was abused in every way possible in that marriage. And not only did my mom unfortunately abandon me for 6 years, I remember around the sixth year calling her, I probably calling because texting wasn't a whole lot, and saying to her, "This man is going to kill me. Like, I am going to die. He's threatened me with guns. He's threatened to kill me, blah, blah, blah." There was a situation where a gun was put next to my face. Um, there was a moment where hands were wrapped around my neck and was like, "I want you to die." And I remember my mom saying to
What's
me,
his name? I want to put in my.
he is not a youth pastor now. Sadly, he is hoping to be a recovering alcoholic. A really sad story. And because I love his parents, I'm going to keep his name quiet. However, the man used to hide bruises on me because obviously being in ministry, you had to grab. He would grab and he would leave marks. Um, he equally tried to mess with our youth group girls. Um, he, I have never been so degraded verbally other than by my father. Um, Sexually, I did not know you could be raped in a marriage until I was married to him. But I remember calling my mom and sadly she was still very much IFB and her words to me were, "You made your bed, you lie in it." And in that moment, I think that did more damage to me than her not talking to me for 6 years.
Oh yeah.
And I can't understand as a mother myself. I can't justify as an empath how anyone could say that. This man made me feel like dog shit. This man called me dog shit. This man told me I wasn't worth loving because I didn't look like a stripper. And equally, I was able to get out of it, but not by my choice because, again, I literally believed what my mom said, that I had made my bed and that my punishment from God was going to be that I was going to die. So,
That's awful. And also I think also like kind of like how you said it was worse than her not talking to you for 6 years.
yeah, it was.
Because I think it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I've had certain like words or actions with my father, and I'm like, man, that was worse than you doing this and this and that, because it brought me back to being a child wanting just love.
Yeah.
Wanting, like, if I'm telling you the worst of the worst, like, and for for your situation, you're over here saying, Mom, he beats me, he rapes me, he does this, he does that, he does this, and you're like wanting her, you just want to shake her, like,
Yeah.
get out, like, do you see it? And she just does it. It's like you're probably thinking, oh my God, my mom doesn't even care if I'm alive or if I'm dead.
At that point, all I thought was God hated me, my mom, and all of the IFB teaching, all of the brainwashing, all of that genuinely hit me in that moment of, I deserve this. I deserve nothing more than this. I am so inherently broken, and something is so inherently wrong with me, even though I tried to do everything right.
Yeah.
I'm not lovable by my parents. I wasn't lovable by my dad. I wasn't lovable by my mom. I wasn't loved by my church. And now this man has had his way with me, used me up, and at 7 years brings his girlfriend to my house and then abandons me. And that was that. Like it was, I even, yeah, it just, there aren't words, and you could go into all the crazy and the emotional of it, but I can tell you people's actions and their words, when you put them together, can dynamically destroy and cause major trauma. And it did. And it reiterated the words that my stepdad had said from the time I was 7, 8 years old.
Yeah.
And so it felt like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I'm like, I'm really effed up. Like something's wrong with me.
And there's a lot of people out there that feel that
Yeah.
way of whether they like the same sex. They think, oh my God, I've heard my whole entire life this is bad, but God made me this way. Why does God hate me? Why would he want me to go
Why?
um sexual abuse? Oh my gosh, I wore that shirt. Oh man, God says if I'm modest and that
Or
shouldn't
that
happen.
nightgown.
But you know what I mean? Like that mindset.
Yeah.
Or even this mindset, just the bare minimum. Oh my gosh, I said that and now he's angry. Why did I do that? Oh my gosh, and the eggshell walking that
Yes.
you mentioned in the beginning of this episode. So many people out there can relate. I don't care who you are. There is times in your life where you walk on eggshells and it's not healthy. Now, there is a difference between arguing and you're like, oh crap, here we go again. But it's another,
Sure.
been there, done
I
that.
know how to push the buttons and pick the fights, but that's different.
But that's whole different besides
Yes.
the abuse
Yeah.
aspect of it and the degrading. Like you said, you've never been more degraded in your life than
Yeah.
that marriage. And there's so many women and men out there
Amen. Yeah.
that can totally relate to that. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Um, I know we have so much to talk about in part 3. I
Crazy.
think part 3 and definitely part 4, obviously, but part 3 and 4 are going to be really big for this series.
Yeah, it is.
Not because we're going to talk about just certain things that happen in life, but there's huge topics that I have been waiting for the moment for someone to come along for us to have this open conversation. And I will say that if you were listening around children, I've always said this too in the beginning of my podcast. Podcast isn't really for children. I know like sometimes people have it on while they're cleaning or whatever, but I will say I think for this series, definitely for future episodes of the severity, just parents out there listening, listen to this and then come up with your own way that you find, I guess, acceptable in your house to bring up these conversations because they are important. Um, but we're gonna dig more into your story, Jennifer. But to kind of like close this part two.
Yeah.
With the fear and guilt and the righteous laws that we had to follow in the IFB, if you could talk to a young girl or guy that may stumble upon this episode where they're kind of in that pickle or that boat of rocking the waves of not knowing what to do, or that fear of if I leave everything I've ever known, kind of give them encouragement and some nice, positive things that it can help them if they're in that boat that can calm the waves.
Sure. One, trust your instincts. They're God given. I said that last time. I'll say it the next 2 episodes. I'll say it every day. Trust the gut that God created you with. 2, find a safe person to talk to. There are people that love Jesus just like you do, and they are willing to help. They are willing to walk with you. 3, one of the things I have learned and I'm learning is that you are never alone. I know it seems like it. I know it feels like it. But you will be amazed that if you can take one small step, the people that are going to come alongside you and become your chosen family, in spite of whatever situation you may be in, you are loved. You are designed and here for a purpose. Reach out to one of us. I know with the podcast and with YouTube and whatnot, I'm on social media. I will gladly walk with anyone at any given moment. But just know that you can trust your guts. You can trust your instincts. And listen, if something doesn't feel right, if you're being told to not say anything, if you're being told things are your fault, it's time to speak up and you're going to be safe. There are people out there that are safe. And that is just my biggest thing. Find another church. Not as in like go to it, but find a church that you know will listen to you. There are mandated reporters. I wouldn't go to the IFB, sadly. I wouldn't go to the SBC, but I would reach out. Don't do this alone because you're not alone.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I always say too, like, you can totally email me at weareonetogether25@gmail.com. I have a list of resources. Definitely, if you live in Indiana, I know for
Yes.
some nonprofits that I would like, to pass information. And I know quite a few people with their books
Same.
and stuff that have
Yeah.
helped me. And I will list those below in the description with like the link for you to buy them. But yeah, no, I love this episode and this conversation and digging deeper in who and what makes Jennifer. and
Jennifer's still learning that too, so the book ought to be really good.
and and that's okay, because I always say this too. If you're not willing to evolve and grow every single day, then you might as well just
Absolutely. Well, it keeps me young. I am hoping to have the majority of it written by my 50th in May. So we will see what happens.
I'm excited, and you best believe I will be taking photos like no other. And
Like I know her.
yeah, I know her. She was on here.
Silent no more.
So no, thank you so much for speaking on today's episode. You can stay tuned for next week's episode, part 3, where we dig even more deeper and talk about a lot of heavy and deep topics that need to be talked about. I've probably talked a little bit about, here and there about certain situations on the podcast, but I think this episode I'm really going to dig deeper. So, Jennifer, be prepared for those.
Ready?
And just because, again, this conversation is very important. And I'm, again, so thankful for you, Jennifer, for coming on today's episode. And I'm looking forward to
Having me.
hearing the feedback.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, stay tuned.
Night.